Now, we'll try to see the world energy scenario. Very popularly, this exam is an examination we ask what is the energy scenario in the world as well as energy scenario in India. Interest in energy everywhere throughout the world is expanding. We know that population is increasing and the standard of living of people is increasing. Definitely, the demand for energy is also increasing. Significant development in energy is anticipated in developing nations. See, developed nations are already developed and they are stagnant now. But in developing nations like India, Asia continent as such, the population is increasing and the aspirations of people are increasing, and hence lot of anticipation of energy requirement is there from developing nations. Coal, oil and gas are the three noteworthy essential primary sources of energy. So globally, coal, oil and gas, natural gas, are the three main sources of primary energy. And the world coal reserves may last for about 200 years, whereas oil will last some 45 years and gas may last some around 65 years. This is a prediction based on the consumption and the taking into consideration the future trend. So the global energy production at the end of 2014 was 14,000 million tons of oil equivalent. We call it MTOE, million tons of oil equivalent. Okay, total energy, we are talking about global energy around the world was 14,000 MTOE. In this, coal accounted for 29%, you can say 30%, oil another 30%, and natural gas 20%. So 30, 30, 60 plus 20, 80%, and another 18% was nuclear, hydro, biofuel, etc. So you can see the fossil fuels like coal, oil and gas, they themselves constitute 82% of energy production in the world. Okay. In this sketch also, in the pie chart you can see coal is 29%, biggest is oil, okay, and then comes coal, and third is natural gas. So here when you talk of production, so it includes these primary sources are used not only for electricity generation but also for transport, industry. Now coal, out of this 14,000, 7,700 MTOE was the production in 2015. After this awareness about environment, now the nations are having policy decisions to not to encourage coal, but they are going for renewable energy. So the global coal production fell by around 4% when compared to the historical data. China accounted for the large share with about 46%, and other Asian countries like OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development countries, they contribute around 25%. You can see the pie chart in coal. So coal major is China only, next OECD 25%, then Asia 17%, whereas Europe is only 8%. Africa very low, 3%. Coming to oil, so global oil production stood at 4,300 MTOE as on 2015. Oil production has increased rapidly, and the Middle East accounted to around 32% of this, Europe and Asia about 16%, America 9%. So you can see that Middle East, like Gulf, what we call, that constituted 32%. Okay. Now coming to natural gas. So natural gas world production was around 4,000 billion cubic meters as on 2015, and there is a growth in natural gas production by 2.25% compared to historical data. OECD countries accounted to 37% share, while Europe and Eurasia 24% and Asia about 9%. So these are the statistics you can see from the pie chart also. This was about global production of energy sources, which include coal, that is 29%, oil 31% and natural gas 21%. All together put up as 14,000 million tons of oil equivalent. We will all compare them with only one unit, that is MTOA, million tons of oil equivalent. Now we look at consumption, global consumption of energy. As I told, the developed countries attributed to high energy consumption as compared to developing countries. 80% of the world population is living in developing countries. Their energy consumption amount is only 40% of the total energy consumption. Whereas the 20% of the people who reside in developed countries, they consume 60% of the power. So industrialized countries like US, Europe, they consume 4 to 5 times more than the world average energy consumption. All these developed countries, they consume around 4 to 5 times than the global average, world average, and even 9 times than the average of developing countries. So developing countries' energy requirements are very low, whereas the developed countries, their energy requirements are very high, because their standard of living is very high. I will give two reasons. One is the standard of living is very high. They have big cars, big houses, and secondly, they have like heating, like Europe and countries in Europe, US and all. Because of the cold weather, their houses, like we have AC and fans in our houses, they have district heating, and they also, that consumes lot of energy, because the temperatures are not like India with around 30-40 degrees centigrade. There the temperature goes low, hence they need to be heated. So the primary energy consumption is projected to grow at the rate of annual rate of 2.7% between 2011 and 20. So the global energy consumption was 9,425 MTOE as on 2014. As far as consumption is concerned, oil accounted to 40%, electricity 18%, natural gas about 15%, and coal 11%. So you can see oil is number one in production, also 32%, and consumption also oil is number one at 40%. So globally, coal consumption has slightly fell down from the historical data. Basically, US, the decline was 12.7%, China 1.5%, but India recorded an increase in the coal dependence by almost 5%. Oil consumption, global oil consumption grew by 1.9 million barrels per day. That is almost 2% increase as compared to historical data. US accounted for increase in 1.6%, China about 6.5%, and India 8%. Only Japan has recorded a decline of about 4%. So because China and India, the demand has increased more of oil. So Natural gas consumption also is growing at about 1.7%. So whatever you can see, oil and gas, they are almost growing by 2%, but coal has reduced by around 1.8%. So natural gas in Iran accounted for 6.2%, China 4.7%, US about 3%. There are some decline in two countries like Russia and Ukraine. So the conclusion is developed countries are consuming more energy, like 20% of the population consuming 60% of the global energy. With the energy demands continues to grow strongly. So as the standard of living is growing, so the energy demand is increasing. People have more number of bikes, more number of cars, big houses, lot of gadgets. Renewable energy sources will gain importance and energy system will become more complex rapidly. Energy efficiency is crucial in dealing with the demand outstripping the supply. Now you can see there is more demand and supply is less. That is why we have electricity cuts and all. Investment should be huge with focus on requirement of solid ecological arrangements. So to meet the huge demands of energy, a lot of investments are required. So for 1 megawatt, almost 5 crores, is required per megawatt. So huge investment is to be made for installing and meeting the requirement of energy. But we should also take care of the ecological or environment concerns. So this was about global energy production and consumption as 2014. Thank you.